And to help us with this particular session, I would like to invite the moderator, one of my madams at the top, so I call her. She has served on the board of several companies, including Skybank, May1 Cable Company, Equity Assurance, IHS, NIMS, representing Polaris Bank MD and the mainstream brokers. She's a multi-talented individual with over 32 years experience in finance and IT, and has a PhD in credit management. I'm talking about no other person than Dr. Mrs. Maki Idowu, the MDC of Express Payment Solutions Limited. Please, can you put your hands together for her? I would like to also invite two of my very good friends in the industry. CEO of Mr. Deremi Atonda is going to be helping us in this fire chat session. Please, can you put your hands together for him as he comes to take his seat up front there? And it's good to see you. And joining him is the open data expert that I always look forward to his presentation each time I have the privilege of anchoring an event in this space. And that is Mr. Emeka Okoye. Mr. Emeka Okoye is going to be joining us on the fire chat session. That is interesting. Where you know the Boy Scouts rule, which is always be prepared. You know that the maker has enough to be able to give us some of those deep insight about what is going on in the industry. And so we'd like an extra microphone or two, as the case is. All right, and I'll be helping Dr. Mrs. Amidowu to coordinate this particular session. So this is our moderator here. Gentlemen, the way you are laughing and smiling, no transaction now. When we're about to start the listing, you can conclude transaction. Over to you, madam.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocols. We're going to be looking at sustainability and roadmap in nurturing and developing fintech talents in Nigeria. We've seen a lot of growth in the industry. We have startups, we have large companies that have gone global. We've seen unicorns come out in this industry. So it's been interesting in our industry. But also know we've had a lot of issues with talents. So what can we look at, in terms of cooperation? I always believe that we need to cooperate rather than compete. We should be able to work with ourselves. At Express Payments, where I work, I know that we partner with a lot of the companies. We work with InterSwitch, we work with Remita, we work with several of the companies. So I believe that the industry is ripe for a lot of cooperation rather than competition. So with my great panelists, I'm going to be asking you questions today. The first I would like to ask, it will be to you, Deremi. How can we form fintech growth aspiration amidst the turbulent times that we're in?
Thank you. And going straight to the issue, and I think you're right on point about collaboration being the foundation for everything we do. And I think Abaka also hinted at that while he was speaking, talking about disruption. And many people thinking they could actually go it alone. And I think the good thing about it has to do with our being Africans, where it is clear that not one person can be a family. And we can easily ride on that. And the typical African environment is where you're never left alone to get things done on your own. And it's not because people are seeking to be part of that glory, it's because there's a vested interest in the next person, there's a sense of community. And I think that's one thing we need to learn to bring back into business here. We seem to be settling for values that exist in some other places, and those, in my view, are not taking us far. And just like you mentioned, we do stuff together. As businesses, Remington Expressway, we do with other people. And first thing, you hardly can get everything done by yourself. First thing for me.
Number two, there are people you can work with who, rather than hold you back, can help you get better. Number three, you need to learn to be open to learn. Learn to be ready to learn from other people. And I think that's a good starting point for this as we navigate the world of business. And as we go around that, we'll see part of it will become investing in others. Not necessarily to be like you. There's nothing wrong in investing in others to be better than you, because at the end of the day, it's about creating value. So I think those may be good discussion starters. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeremy. Very good points. You know, you mentioned investing in others. I think it's something we really need to look at. How do we grow the talent coming behind us? Not just moving on and believing that things would work. So Emeka, I'd like to go to you. How can the fintech industry work together to build talent? And before you answer, it's really nice to meet you, Emeka. I only see you on the chat. You're very active. So we have the Fintech 1000 group, and Emeka is really, really active there. So it's nice to finally meet you in person. So I'd like to hear your views on this. How can we grow talent in the industry?
Okay. The challenge we have in the industry is we don't have much support coming in from the government. Remember that the purpose of the industry is to, service the economy. But we also forget that, the economy is managed by government. And again, we need to also understand that the job of training people is not for the private sector, actually. It's the government. The government set up the educational system, then the agenda. And that agenda is supposed to fulfill some desire, some ambition of where the country wants to be. And if the government wants fintech to happen, then it needs to support actualization of the fintech dream. It's not enough to come and collect license, money, and expect to be collecting all sorts of fees. They're supposed to create what they call the platforms and the infrastructure, which one of it is human capital. So the private sector cannot do it alone. It's not possible. The government needs to identify the opportunities that the fintech community is creating and tap into them, like, how do we make this better? On the platform today, I think I talked something about revenue versus tax mindset. Revenue, it's quite unfortunate we have governments that are so focused about revenues and less about the taxes. Now, if we focus about the tax, it means that the more the company grows, the more tax they pay. And for a company to grow, it needs some form of sustainability. One of it is having human capital. Not only having the human capital, but also creating the opportunities. So fintech can grow bigger if government takes it more seriously. And everybody plays their role. It's going to be a boom. Now, look at what we've all achieved, despite how gloomy the economy is and how unproductive. Think about that for a minute. This is fintech in a consumption biased economy. There's so much that could happen in a production-based economy.
Thank you very much, Emeka. That the government needs to do a lot more. I agree with you. But I think as the private sector, we also have to up our game. So I'll give you an example. I'm the Vice President of the National Institute of Credit Administration, and we kept fighting until finally they've signed it into law. The bill has been passed, and now that the bill has been passed, it was passed August 16 by the President, it was signed. What we're doing as an association is that we're now working with the National Universities Commission to get all the universities to run credits, courses in credit admin in the universities. We're in the process of getting that done. So that's for credit. So I believe that if we take advantage of that, recently we've had a lot of issues with the fintechs that are lending. You can imagine if we partner and collaborate with NICA, which is the National Institute of Credit Admin, to ensure that we get our people trained better on credit. So that's what I'm also looking at. What can we do in fintech? As fintech, what can we collaborate? Why we wait for the government? But we can also do things ourselves. I would look at us as organizations. How many of us actually try to train younger people? If you take the summer holidays, do we actually get young people to come in for coding? Do we encourage them? What can we do? I believe that there are things that we can do as companies to ensure just a little by each of us will go a long way. And that would take me to STEM. How do we get girls more interested in that? What can we do? What do you think we can do to ensure growth in that, having ladies in fintech? Yes, we have quite a number now. I can see my smiling ladies. Yeah, but look at the numbers, look at the percentage, it's still quite low. We need to encourage them. And I look at myself as an example. When I was going to get into university in 1983, and my dad told somebody I was going to study computer science, he was like, why? What sort of course is that? You know, that why? He said, oh, I'm good in maths. And he said, why shouldn't she can go and be a doctor? He said, no, her sister is already studying medicine. People didn't see why we should even go in there. You know, so but now that we're there, and I started coding very early, what are we doing? What's the deliberate effort that we're doing as companies? We had a Wimbies event yesterday, and I was shocked. In some of the countries, they actually have percentages to say you must have this percentage of ladies in certain positions. So what are we doing to encourage that? In the fintech industry, should we even be looking at a way where, even for the organization, there's a percentage that you must have at senior levels? You know, because we have that in the banking industry. What should we be doing in the industry? So over to you.
Okay.
Any.
So, okay.
Either Jeremy or Emeka.
Okay, so I want to comment a bit on the credits first, then go to as they have passed this law, if the government doesn't think about credit, we have a challenge in digital lending where people don't take in seriousness of data protection laws. Now, the data protection law is owned by the government, regulated. Privacy is regulated by government. So the point now is, if we don't design our human capital to understand even some of the policies coming from the government, then it becomes a problem in the industry. It's not, I mean, we can't even control the digital lending challenge right now. It's beyond what, you know, there's a limit to what we can do as private sector. It still boils down to responsibility of government. And we also need them to understand their role. They have to be involved. They can't be outsiders. So we need to get the right people who could drive, you know, these paradigms well. Remember, we're also craving for external investment. So if we don't clean up our act, then it's going to reduce, you know, opportunity of external investment. So it's really key that we don't keep things to only private sector, because there's a limit to what we can do. And that takes me to the STEM issue. STEM is not a play for private sector alone. Is one of the reasons why today Africa is where it is. If you check any STEM country in the world, the government leads science, it leads technology, it leads mathematics, it leads those initiatives. And that's the way, private sector can't scale science. Let me give an example. First, basic research, that's the research where you don't get anything, that you might not get anything profitable out of it, can only be paid for by government. No private sector would have paid for America going to the moon, because there was no business model, you know, that could explain what will happen after they come back. That's what governments do. It's the consequence of those research that you now see we have more of applied research, which private sector comes in. So there are things we can't do alone because it won't scale well. So we need everybody to take responsibility, you know, for their own part. Yeah, we need to do what we need to do, but we can't do much, you know, beyond what we can.
Okay, maybe she'll speak to that since we're talking about talent, right? And Abubakar said a few things I would like to refer to, talking about disruption. And government, most often, is not a disruptor. The issue you're talking about is at the art of disruption. Number one, we have a fintech industry today that is thriving, a fintech industry that is challenged on account of talent. That challenge today is oblivious to government. Government is contending with many things, and I think the art of the question is what can we ourselves do? So Emeka is talking about what government can do, but there needs to be a complementarity, yeah? One of the things we need to do is admitting there's even a challenge and we're talking about it. Many times we either ignore or wish away problems, but talking about it is the first step. We have admitted. Number two thing, also at the art of today, collaborate to solve it. Quite a number of times, each person is trying to solve the same problem in silos. That's not going to get us very far. So what are those things we can do? And you had hinted at some things. Many companies typically will want to organize, my own summer coding camp. Your own. Imagine 20, 30 fintech companies say, we're having the Nigerian summer coding camp. This is Nigerian Fintech Awards, right? Just think about the potentials. We're going to be able to achieve a lot more. The other bit of it is giving opportunities. And that's why I'm going to link it to the fourth thing I want to say, which is advocacy. Just think about it, right? During COVID, the country was about shut down for about maybe 12 months, 14 months. Ask yourself, what happened to the Suez program? What was happening? Who was supposed to respond? What was school supposed to do? Number two, what happened to the coppers? Within that window of 1 year, where there wasn't anything, how did we respond? Guess what? The industry responded somewhat. You certainly leverage remote work by putting some things in place. That was another opportunity we probably missed. So without forgetting or losing sight of this response to talent, the last bit of it I'm going to talk about is advocacy. Because there must be an intersection between business and government. Government is not waiting by the street to do what Emeka has said. We must make it happen, and that's why I want to give kudos to those who have been meeting on different platforms representing the fintech industry with the presidential aspirants. Creating an agenda from now. You're not waiting to talk about revenue or taxes when you have not laid the foundation. So those conversations must continue. Thanks to you and others who brought the credit administration thing, it's in there.
For the government, for the fintechs, we need to act, because what's happening today, we are poaching staff from ourselves. I mean, in 2020 in Express, I recall taking staff from InterSwitch, and then this year, InterSwitch is taking my staff. And I just said to myself, anyone, I'm going to call Mitchell and say it's enough. So really, we're just going round and round. So I believe that we must take it upon ourselves to grow the talent we need in the industry. We have to work together. Just as you mentioned, imagine if, as we're having Fintech Awards, a lot of fintechs come together and plan that summer thing, plan different things. How can we get more talents in the industry? Because whether we like it or not, we're all suffering it. A lot of them have japat, and that's the truth. And with dollar hitting, where it's hitting, I think we're going to lose more. So we really need to come together and look at ways of improving. Okay, so I'd just like you to talk generally. How do you see the industry? What are the things? Because we have some startups. What do you encourage? What would you like to encourage startups? What should they be looking at? How do we encourage investors to come into the industry? And after that, we'll throw it open for questions.
Okay, like I mentioned before, we've achieved all this in a consumer-based economy. We've done so much. I mean, we've done well, extremely well, in a very poor economy. So that means the potential is huge. For me, the first thing I always tell any company I meet is for them to take data seriously. Data is something we need to take, beyond the hype. Data is probably the most valuable asset we have right now. So we need to start investing in it because it can unearth a whole lot of things. It's easier for me to say this thing. It's a little bit harder, but once you come in, it becomes easier. So data should be priority. I want every financial organization, both startups and FIs, traditional FIs, to have their data strategy right. Because if you get it right this period, most likely it will take you, well into the productive economy that we envisage for ourselves. Not only that, There are other sectors of the economy that is about to boom. Fintech needs to see their relevance. What we hardly talk about is fintech and government. People have not really figured out that digital government is actually fintech. If you look at it, fintech should be supporting government's digital initiatives. Unfortunately, we are not at that level, but these are new areas that will come in. Then we talk of things like urbanization, which is gathering a lot of talk, which can also change the face of fintech. So the potential for the ecosystem is huge. And despite all this, the educational system is not even involved. We have not tapped into the research capabilities of our educational system. So, and we've not tapped into possibilities of policies based on research outcome. So, what we have created here is big, and we really need to give ourselves applause. The potential is way more than this. So I'm very positive about, what is about to come.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yes, as you're talking about startups and you're saying, what can we do? It's just to continue to think about the opportunities around us. The opportunities are endless, and that's the honest truth. The society continues to evolve, and for every evolution cycle, there will be new opportunities. There will always be new opportunities. And still talking about the theme of disruption at this event, quite a number of the supposed matured fintechs, if you go to check their trash bins, there will be things they wish they had done. And these are some of the things that they can see through startups, And that can form another layer of the fintech ecosystem. Things you believe could be done differently. There's nothing wrong in setting up these things to be done in some other ways. If you don't do it, someone else is going to do it anyway. The other bit of it is to find ways of providing mentorship to startups. And the opportunity exists. There's no reason why anyone should make the same mistake twice. There's no reason. And we can benefit a lot more from this. The startup bill has become an act, it's been signed, but just check and find out. We get hard on ourselves that we don't tell our stories enough. If we don't tell our stories, it used to be in the olden days that if you steal the king's trumpet, where are you going to blow it? Steal it first. Blow it, let the world tell the news that you stole the king's trumpet. Then you tell them what you want to tell them. That's because you were not listening to me. There are a number of successful things we've done here in Nigeria that nobody is talking about outside of Nigeria. We need to bring that to the front burner. Economic diplomacy, riding on the successes of Nigerian fintech, and that can be another chain of startups for the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like the idea of blowing your own trumpet. We should do more of that, really. And the mentoring part of it, it's important, I think, because we have a generation of fintech CEOs that are moving. They're almost moving out. So we need to ensure that we mentor the younger ones that are coming along the way. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, I think our time is up. So I'd like to thank my panelists, Jeremy and Emeka. Thank you so much.
Please, can we have a group?